I'm Gary Null, and I'd like to welcome you to this program. Broadcasting live from our studios in New York City, vis-a-vis the Internet. If you'd like to watch today's program, you can go to GaryNull.com or ProgressiveRadioNetwork.com. It's a packed show today. I'll be giving you more information on why vaccination does not equal immunization in any given individual that we're concerned about giving this vaccine to. I'll give you the reasons why I'm concerned about the safety and efficacy of the H1N1 vaccine as well as the regular flu vaccine. We will also be doing some commentary in support of the 500,000 New York State healthcare workers who are concerned about being forced to either take a vaccine that has never been proven safe or effective or lose their jobs. Even this morning, 100 medical workers, lab technicians, and nurses and physician's assistants at Columbia University or Columbia Presbyterian contacted us saying that they now have over 100 names of people on a petition who work at the hospital who are going to refuse the vaccine. We in turn are going to meet with them, and I will give them some of my own on-council or on-staff legal counsel to support their efforts. And lawyers around the United States who would like to join in our efforts, please contact Doug Henderson, our office, because we intend to be bringing lawsuits in all 50 states and opening up for dialogue and debate. I've had multiple interviews with members of the media because once the lawsuit was brought and I sued the FDA on Friday, it made news, and now they're asking why. They were clueless about the safety and efficacy issues. Anyhow, we intend to be pressing the issue for safety and efficacy in all the states. So more to come on that. My guest in the second part of our program today will be Frederick Lane, and he is an expert on the privacy issues. And I'm very concerned that our government surveillance of Americans and our self-inflicted wounds that have cost us the loss of privacy are not being addressed anywhere. So we will address that today. The latest on health and healing, the latest on the environment, and especially from a new article I just read this morning from Orrin Pilkey and Robert Young from Island Press. It says countries are preparing for rising seas, but the U.S. is far behind. So I'll bring you up to date on what's happening on that. The latest on genetic engineering. As you can see, it's a full show. I will try to get calls in also today, as we're trying to take calls every single program, and what I don't get on this show, I'll certainly try to make up for on my 3 o'clock show this afternoon. Let us begin. Warning: eating meat may cause sickness, paralysis, and death. This is from Tom Laskowy from grist.org. I'll quote it. It's hard to draw any conclusion from Michael Moss's New York Times blockbuster investigative piece on E. coli in industrial beef, which is centered on the plight of Stephanie Smith, a young dance instructor left comatose, near death, and now paralyzed after eating a single Cargill hamburger. Of course, a single hamburger can include meat from hundreds, some would say thousands of animals. As Moss put it, quote, ground beef is usually not simply a chunk of meat run through a grinder. Instead, records and interviews show a single portion of hamburger meat is often an amalgam of various grades of meat from different parts of cows and even from different slaughterhouses. These cuts of meats are particularly vulnerable to E. coli contamination. Food experts often say, despite this, there is no federal requirement for grinders to test their ingredients for the pathogen. This is why a food safety expert who helped develop tracking systems for E. coli in meat can declare that, quote, ground beef is not a completely safe product. No kidding. The problem, however, is not with E. coli in general. The problem is that the particular strain of E. coli which infected Smith, known as E. coli 0157H7, is virulent, deadly, persistent, and endemic in industrial beef. How virulent, how deadly, and persistent? This much. Quote, food scientists have registered increasing concern about the virulence of this pathogen since only a few strains cells may make someone sick. And they warn that federal guidance to cook meat thoroughly and to wash up afterwards is not sufficient. A test by the Times found that the safe handling instructions are not enough to prevent the bacteria from spreading in the kitchen. In other words, if a piece of infected meat ends up in your kitchen and you're almost guaranteed to expose it to other matter, no matter how carefully you handle it, and then you get sick. And how endemic is it? This year alone, over 500,000 pounds of E. coli infected ground beef have been recalled nationwide. And that does not include 800,000 pounds of cargo beef recalled for contamination with antibiotic-resistant salmonella. Indeed, if Moss's work proves anything, it's that the safety system in industrial beef processing is largely just broken. And while the government is able to peek behind the curtain of these massive slaughterhouses and processing facilities, it seems far more concerned with protecting companies' intellectual property than the public health. Quote, "The meat industry treats much of its practices and the ingredients in ground beef as a trade secret. While the Department of Agriculture has inspectors posted in plants and has access to production records, it also guards those secrets. Federal records released by the department through the Freedom of Information Act blacked out details of Cargill's grinding operation that could be learned only through copies of the documents obtained from other sources." In one most chilling account, and I thought devastating, quotes in the entire piece, a top official at the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service observed that his options were somewhat limited since he had to, quote, look for the entire at the entire industry, not just what is best for public health. Note that his phrasing sets the meat industry's needs at odds with ours. The two cannot be reconciled in his eyes. What does that say about the government's ability to ensure safe food? No matter how you structure it, the industry now appears too big and too powerful to be regulated. Well, here are my thoughts on this. I believe that you will never end up having a plant that processes meat or of any kind, poultry, pork, beef, as safe for a couple of reasons. Because you have animals that are diseased, you do not have a perfect system, it's a very stressful place to work, especially the slaughterhouses. Everything is done based on very fast production standards, so you may only have seconds to look for obvious signs of disease. You're not doing microscopic examination inside the tissue where you would actually see, does this chicken, does this cow, does this pork have cancer in it? And so those studies are rarely done. When they are done, they'll take a piece of meat, they'll do an inspection on it, but then all the rest of that meat goes ahead and gets processed. Then a week later you get a study saying, there was E. coli in that batch. Well, it's too late. Where's that batch at? Who's it been sold to? Who's consumed it? I think it makes a lot more sense to do the following. Look at what it means to be a vegan. Yesterday at noon in Thompson Square Park, I met with a really nice group of New Yorkers and people from New Jersey as well, who came together to celebrate what it means to be a vegan. Now, we don't have to worry about those salmonella and E. coli meat or eggs or mayonnaise because we're not consuming those items. It doesn't mean we can't develop food poisoning. You can, even in your green vegetables, if they're not washed properly. I've said many times, never, never just eat something without washing it. Wash it thoroughly. In fact, if it's organic, you have to make sure you wash it because it was grown in manure, animal manure. Which means that it's healthier, but it's also very susceptible to that bacteria. And then you have the benefit of eating something that's more nutritious, promotes wellness and healing, where meat promotes disease and sickness. So we're looking at the wrong end of the problem. Gluten-free diet reduces bone problems in children with celiac disease. Let me quote this. Celiac disease is an inherited intestinal disorder characterized by lifelong intolerance to the ingestion of gluten, a protein found in wheat and rye and barley. And Now a new article in the journal Nutrition